Let me tell you a story. After I slapped my husband's mistress, he broke my leg and threw me into the basement to die. That is why I called my father Thaddeus King, known in certain circles by the moniker True North. "Dad," I said, "don't leave a single one of them alive. But before we continue, please type in the comments which state or country you are tuning in from. I am curious to know who is on air with me right now. Enjoy the listening. I will start from the beginning." That day carved itself into my memory in sharp shards of glass. Every sound, every scent, every detail. My heels clicked a frantic rhythm against the marble floors of the mansion. The echo bounced through the empty hallways, and within that emptiness, a premonition of disaster was already lurking. Outside the windows, a fine Chicago drizzle was falling. It was the middle of October. Grayness stretched to the horizon, a dampness that seeped right into your bones. I had returned from New York 2 days early. I wanted to surprise Kaylin for our 5th wedding anniversary. Fashion Week had wrapped up ahead of schedule, and I had imagined his joy at seeing me standing in the doorway. The first warning sign was the black lace lingerie on the sofa in the living room, tossed there carelessly, almost demonstratively. Then another piece of clothing, and another. A trail of black fabric led upstairs to our bedroom, and with every step up that staircase, my heart hammered harder, pulsing in my temples. Maybe the housekeeper, Etta, had done laundry and forgot to put it away. That pathetic hope melted with every riser, because I knew perfectly well that Etta would never wear things like that. From behind the slightly ajar bedroom door came moans and laughter. A scratchy voice, painful in its familiarity. Sienna, my best friend, the woman with whom I had sat up late in the kitchen over bottles of wine, discussing runway shows and building plans for the future. "So, when are you finally going to tell her everything?" Her voice cut through the silence of the corridor. "What's the rush?" Kaylin answered with that smug intonation I had learned to hate. "Let her play dress-up designer for a while. Her whole career rests on my money anyway." Something inside me snapped, completely and irrevocably. I kicked the door open. The lock gave way under the force of my rage. They were lying in our bed, the same bed where I had woken up next to him for 5 years straight. On sheets, I had selected myself at a boutique on the Magnificent Mile, sifting through dozens of shades of white. Naked, relaxed, acting as if they had every right to be there. In my house, in my life, in my world. Kaylin jumped up, his eyes widening in shock. Sienna did not even try to cover herself. She just laughed nervously, tossing her hair back from her shoulder. "Zuri, why are you back so early?" she drawled, with the casual tone of a chance meeting at a subway station. I do not remember moving to the bed. I only remember the crunch. My palm connected with her face with such force that blood sprayed from her nose like a fountain. Sienna screamed, clutching the bridge of her nose. "Have you lost your damn mind?" Kaylin roared, and he punched me in the stomach. Pain shot through me, knocking the air from my lungs. I doubled over, gasping for oxygen, black spots dancing in my vision. "Is this you?" The words came out with difficulty. "You're protecting her?" Kaylin grabbed me by my hair, twisting the braids. "She is the daughter of Cornelius Graves, do you understand? And who are you? A half-baked designer I picked up out of pity. Did you think anyone needed your little scribbles without my connections?" He dragged me toward the door while I clawed at his hands, trying to break his iron grip. Sienna, wrapped in a sheet, stood in the bedroom doorway. Finally, fear had replaced the smugness on her face. "Kaylin, stop. Don't," she whispered, barely audible. But he was not listening to anyone anymore. At the very top of the stairs, he shoved me with all his might. The fall seemed to last an eternity. Steps flashed before my eyes. Pain exploded at every point of contact with the marble. And then, the final chord. My right leg struck a baluster at an unnatural angle. The snap was so loud, it felt like the neighbors behind our high-privacy fence must have heard it. I lay at the bottom of the staircase, unable to move. My leg was twisted at an angle human anatomy does not allow. Kaylin walked down leisurely and kicked me right on the broken limb. Only a wheeze escaped my throat. I did not have the strength to scream. "Now know your place," he hissed through his teeth. Sienna stood frozen on the landing above, pressing a bloody cloth to her face. In her eyes, I could read the horror of a person who just realized what kind of monster she was sharing a bed with. Kaylin grabbed me by the arm and dragged me across the foyer. A bloody trail remained on the pale marble. The basement greeted me with the smell of stagnant dampness and old paint. He threw me into the far corner with such force that my head cracked against the concrete wall. "Sit there and cool off a bit," he threw out, then yelled toward the kitchen. "Etta, do not feed this woman for 24 hours. Let her get her head straight." Before leaving, he patted down the pockets of my coat, took my purse and my phone, but he missed the secret pocket in the lining. A professional habit of a designer: always need a place for a small sketchbook. Inside was an old burner phone I kept for emergencies. The steel door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Darkness wrapped around me like a thick cocoon. The cold of the concrete floor seeped through my clothes. Pain pulsed in my broken leg with every beat of my heart. I lay there, clutching my mangled limb, fighting back nausea. Tears flowed on their own, from the pain, from the betrayal, from the collapse of my entire world. For 5 years, I had tried to be the perfect wife. I gave up my maiden name, turned down an offer to work at a top atelier in Paris, and sacrificed my own ambitions for this marriage. And he defended his mistress, crippled me, and turned me into a prisoner in my own home. With shaking fingers, I pulled the phone from the secret pocket. 23% battery. The signal was weak, but it was there. I sent my geolocation to a number I had avoided for 20 years, and only then did I dial. Mom had left my father when I was 10. She insisted his world was not for us, that we needed a normal life without crime and danger. I grew up, graduated from Parsons School of Design, earned an MBA from Wharton, and married a successful entrepreneur. And now, that successful entrepreneur had maimed me and locked me in the basement of his own house. The ringing tone stretched on endlessly. 2, 3, and then a raspy, tense voice answered. "Zuri?" 20 years of silence, yet he recognized me instantly. "Dad," I sobbed, unable to hold back the weeping. "Help me!" "What happened?" His voice trembled with barely contained panic. Thaddeus King, the man the Chicago streets knew as True North, never panicked. But right now, he was just a father hearing his daughter cry. "My husband, he broke my leg, locked me in the basement. I sent the coordinates. Hold on, baby girl, I'm coming." Later, I learned the truth. He always knew where I was. He watched from afar through his people, never interfering in my life, but keeping a finger on the pulse. He knew about college, about the marriage, about every important step. He was waiting for me to ask for help myself, and that day had arrived. He arrived in 40 minutes. I counted every second on the phone screen, terrified the battery would die first. First, muffled sounds of a struggle came from upstairs. Thuds, screams, choice profanity. Then the basement door flew off its hinges from a powerful kick. A silhouette in a dark, tactical jacket appeared in the doorway. Cassius, my father's right hand, a legend in the underworld. He crouched beside me, professionally inspected my leg, and grimaced at what he saw. "Hang in there, beauty," he said softly, lifting me into his arms with surprising gentleness. As he carried me upstairs, I saw Kaylin's security guards lying unconscious in the hallways. In the living room, Kaylin and Sienna were on their knees, surrounded by men in plain clothes. A massive bruise was blooming on Kaylin's temple. He looked at me with such terror that one might almost feel sorry for him. Almost. "Who are these people?" he wheezed, his voice gone. "My father's calling card," I answered. And for the first time in this cursed day, I felt satisfaction. Sienna was shaking with tremors, clutching a robe to her chest. "But your father, he's dead." I smiled crookedly through the pain. "No, honey. He is alive and well, and he holds a grudge for a very long time." Cassius carried me out to a black SUV parked at the gates. Father was waiting in the back seat, gray-haired with deep wrinkles and harsh lines around his mouth, but still possessing that same quiet power in every movement, a steel gaze that made you want to confess every sin. He looked at my mangled leg, and something flickered in his face. For a moment, the mask of the ruthless boss cracked. "To the private clinic on the North Shore," he commanded the driver. "Call Dr. Evans, the best orthopedic surgeon in the city. Prep the operating room immediately." He gently laid me on the back seat, placing a pillow made of mink fur under my leg, and raised the soundproof partition. "Forgive me," he said quietly, and a vulnerability unusual for him slipped into his voice. "I watched you all these years, knew where you lived, who you were seeing, but I didn't step in, because that's what your mother wanted. If I had known that Kaylin was such a... Mom dreamed of a normal life for me," I said. "And look how that turned out." The bitterness in his voice was thick enough to cut. I stayed silent. The answer hung between us like a heavy weight. The surgery lasted 4 hours. I woke up in a room that looked more like a presidential suite. Father was sitting in an armchair nearby, holding my hand in his. Outside the window, autumn twilight was gathering. In Chicago it comes early, wrapping the city in a melancholic shroud. "What do you want?" Father asked point blank. By the code of the streets, Kaylin should already be feeding the fish at the bottom of Lake Michigan. I remembered how Kaylin courted me 5 years ago, showing up at my tiny studio in Wicker Park with armfuls of peonies, asking me to design his office with a soul, swearing eternal love, promising the whole world at my feet. "I don't want him to die quickly," I said slowly, weighing every word. "I want him to lose everything, his business, his money, his reputation. I want him to feel as helpless as I did in that basement." Father nodded, and a predatory smile appeared on his lips, the kind that made even hardened gangsters sit up straight back in the 90s. "We can arrange that, but we'll have to play big, and it will be dangerous." "I'm not afraid." He looked into my eyes and smiled for real, the first time all evening. "You take after me." Hidden cameras were installed in my hospital room. 3 days later, Kaylin showed up, disheveled, with bags under his eyes, in a wrinkled suit holding a pathetic bouquet. Father's people had already had an educational conversation with him, explaining clearly what would happen if he ever raised a hand to me again. "Zuri, I'm sorry. Please, forgive me," he whimpered, falling to his knees by the bed. "I didn't mean to. It's all Sienna. She seduced me. She set me up." "Hush, honey." I stroked his cheek, feigning total forgiveness. "Let's forget this nightmare. We'll start with a clean slate." He almost cried with relief. The fool. The cameras recorded every lying word, every hypocritical promise to change. Upon my discharge, a motorcade of 3 black Escalades with tinted windows pulled up to the clinic. Cassius wheeled me out in a wheelchair, and Kaylin met us at the entrance, his face whiter than the hospital sheets. Cassius leaned into his ear, but loud enough for me to hear every word. "If anything happens to her, if even a small bruise appears, I will unleash people on you that no money and no security can save you from. Got it?" Kaylin nodded with the frantic speed of a woodpecker on a pine tree. I returned to the house, but it was no longer my home. It was just a temporary stage for a play titled Revenge. As soon as Kaylin rushed off to his office, I opened his laptop. He hadn't changed his passwords in years. Laziness and arrogance will destroy any idiot. The cloud storage revealed all his secrets: reservations at the peninsula and apartments in the Gold Coast, dates in the most expensive spots in the city, regular generous transfers to Sienna labeled "for love," and videos of their meetings. It turned out my husband loved to film intimate moments on his phone, plus a fresh message from her, "Miss you, bunny. When will I see you? Kisses everywhere." I methodically copied everything onto a flash drive, not just proof of the affair. The company's financial documents painted a picture of massive fraud: off-the-book salaries, kickbacks to contractors, fake invoices for work never done. Then I called my father. Start buying up shares of Apex Construction Group, quietly, through shell companies. Offshore accounts in the Caymans will work perfectly. You think like a true strategist. Undisguised pride rang in his voice. All right. Cassius will handle the materials for the corporate gala. We have a talented editor, formerly a music video director. The company jubilee and our wedding anniversary were supposed to be celebrated grandly at a venue downtown. I wore a burgundy dress by a top couturier, deliberately leaving the cast on my leg visible. Let everyone see my battle scars. In the hall, people looked at me with poorly concealed curiosity, whispering behind their hands. Rumors of the accident had already crawled through the city. My in-laws approached with strained smiles. Sienna, in a white dress, was hiding in a far corner of the ballroom. "You look like a ghost bride in that outfit," I tossed out as I passed her, "especially with that purple tint under your eyes. By the way, did your nose heal, or is it still crooked?" She paled and turned away, covering her face with her hand. In the crowd of guests, I noticed a man looking at me with interest devoid of fear. Tall, in an impeccable tuxedo, with piercing eyes behind stylish glasses. "Orion Sterling," he introduced himself, "managing partner of the Sterling Investment Group. I've heard many intriguing things about you. Hopefully, not only bad, but let's say, impressive. Shall we talk after the official part? I believe we might have common ground." Reginald Kalin Sr., my father-in-law, went up to the improvised stage and began a pompous speech about the company's achievements. He thanked Kalin for his success, praised strong family values, and finally turned to me. And of course, thank you to our dear Zuri for her patience and support. I stood up, leaning on an inlaid cane, and asked for the microphone. "I have a gift, too," I announced in the ensuing silence. "An exclusive video. Very revealing." The lights went down. On the massive screen, the show began, the one the video director and Cassius had spent a whole week editing. First frames, Kalin and Sienna in our marital bed, the date in the corner, the day of my surgery. Moans, laughter, her voice. "When are you going to divorce that fool?" Dead silence hung over the hall. Someone dropped a glass. The shatter echoed through the hushed room. Then came the bank statements, transfers to the mistress, casino bills, and the final chord, an audio recording of a conversation between Kalin and a foreman. "Forget about those safety codes. The main thing is to deliver on time. After that, let it flood for all I care." Kalin lunged toward the projection booth, but Cassius materialized in his path, blocking the way. Sienna shrieked and rushed toward the exit, tripping over the hem of her dress. "But I am magnanimous," I continued in an even voice. "I forgive my husband. We all make mistakes. The main thing is to fix them in time." After the scandalous show, Orion approached with a glass of champagne and a folder of documents. "Bravo! But that was just the beginning. And what do you propose?" He opened the folder, demonstrating schemes and calculations. "The real structure of Apex Group. Debts are triple the official figures. Assets are being siphoned off through shell companies. If you continue to pressure their reputation and we engage in short selling, in 6 months the company can be bought for pennies. I have an MBA and 3 years working in my father's legitimate projects. Sufficient qualification? More than. I think we will work well together." At home, Kalin threw a tantrum, begging for forgiveness. I patted his head like a merciful goddess and casually advised him to withdraw from the tender with the Graves family. After what their daughter did, can we really trust them? He agreed. Fear of my father outweighed his greed. Then I asked Dad to gather dirt on the Graves family. What he told me turned the revenge from personal to ancestral. A private investigator had recorded a conversation between Reginald Kalin Sr. and Cornelius Graves on a miniature bug. "Remember that business 20 years ago," Graves was saying. "How did your father hush up the story with that woman?" At my father's country estate, amidst ancient pines, he showed me yellowed photographs. "Your mother accidentally filmed Old Man Graves beating a construction worker to death. She wanted to go to the police with the pictures. They came for her that same night. The car accident was staged. The room spun before my eyes. I grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. 3 days later, Constantine Graves crashed on the highway. Father continued grimly. That was my answer. But the Kalins and the Graves hushed up the case through their people in the department. Now, I am avenging not just you, but your mother too. The plan unfolded methodically. Over 6 months, through shell companies, we bought up 40% of the shares. Father obtained proof of the use of defective rebar. At the Lakeshore Quarter project, the supplier turned out to be a Graves firm. Customs was tipped off about contraband shipments. When the information leaked to the press, an emergency shareholders meeting was called. I walked into the boardroom as the authorized representative of the largest block of shares. I propose removing Kalin from management until the investigation is complete. I enunciated every word. The vote happened in a flash. Kalin looked at me with the gaze of a trapped animal. After the meeting, a black SUV with no plates tailed us down Michigan Avenue. Cassius engaged an evasive driving maneuver, sharp lane changes, underground parking garages, switching vehicles. An hour later, we were in a safe house. Now the real fun begins, Cassius warned, checking his weapon. 8 months later, the Kalin and Graves empires collapsed. Cornelius Graves was arrested for racketeering and smuggling. We bought the shares for dirt cheap. And then I found the ultimate secret. Monthly transfers to Sienna from Reginald Kalin Sr.'s account. $8,000 for medical services. A DNA test confirmed it. The father of the child was my father-in-law. At Reginald's birthday party, I appeared in a champagne-colored dress and my mother's black pearl necklace. During the toasts, I stepped up to the stage. I have a special gift. The truth is always more precious than gold. Documents appeared on the screen. Account violations, medical reports, and the DNA test result. Want to hear the juiciest part? I was savoring the moment. The plan was to pass the mistress's child off as the heir. A recording of Reginald's voice played. Little Kalin won't know. Sienna will play the part, get the money, everyone's happy. Kalin roared and threw himself at his father. I watched the brawl, feeling only emptiness. A week later, on Lakeshore Drive, an SUV rammed us. Cassius masterfully avoided a direct collision, and then my father's motorcycle crew appeared. Several shots were fired. The attacker's car flipped over. That evening, Cassius reported that Kalin and Sienna had been kidnapped by some thugs. They demanded a meeting at an abandoned warehouse. I went, but not alone. A whole squad followed behind me. The gang leader, a man with a scar across his entire face, smirked. The vultures offer a deal. We help finish off the Kalins in exchange for territory. Did they seriously think I would come without backup? Smoke grenades, a tactical operation. 10 minutes later, the gangsters were lying on the ground, zip-tied. Father knew how to solve problems cleanly. We announced the purchase of the controlling stake. At the press conference, I spoke as the new CEO, promising transparency and new standards. That same day, Cornelius Graves died in jail from a massive heart attack. Traces of an exotic toxin, a dead end in the investigation. Father's signature. Was that you? I asked him directly. He nodded without a shadow of doubt. For your mother. And so you would be safe. Enough blood, Dad. Let's build something clean. He hugged me tightly. You are stronger than me, daughter. A year later, the North Group was building affordable housing instead of elite towers. Orion found me in my office late one evening. You're missing the board meeting. I'm tired. He pulled out a velvet box and got down on one knee. Then rest with me, forever. An antique ring with an emerald shone in the light of the desk lamp. Give me time to finish everything. As much as you need. He kissed my hand with infinite tenderness. Father underwent heart surgery. The prognosis was grim. A year, maybe less. He handed me his will. I set a bad example, he wheezed, but you can fix everything. I created a security firm for former criminal elements wishing to start an honest life. I gave them the chance my father never had. After another press conference, Orion took me to the roof of our office building. He got down on one knee again. Now I was looking at Chicago at night, the lights of the avenues, the silhouette of the skyline, the bridges raised over the river, beauty washed in blood. Yes, now yes. The wedding was quiet. Father walked me down the aisle, aged, gaunt, but proud. "I'm wearing Mom's necklace," I whispered. "Forgive me," he whispered back. "There is nothing to forgive. Dad, you saved me." On our honeymoon, on the terrace of a villa in Lake Como, I told Orion, "I think I'm pregnant." He froze with his glass in hand. "Really?" "If it's a girl, we'll call her Lily, like Mom." He hugged me, and we stood there, watching the sunrise over the lake. For the first time in many months, I felt peace. The black pearls on my neck shimmered in the first rays of the sun, a memory of a mother who dreamed of a normal life for her daughter. I could not give that to her, but I can give it to my child. The story is finished. The circle is closed, and something new begins, where there is no place for revenge nor blood, just a quiet and measured life. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this.